right, everyone. Welcome to the Rise41 podcast and to the fourth episode of our Overcoming Adversity series. I'm your host, Gonzalo Gonzo Herrero, and today I have the privilege of welcoming Mr. J.D. Emmons. He is a sobriety and development mentor who has created an online community to help others achieve success through sobriety and to take control of their lives in 90 days. Welcome, J.D.
Yeah, thanks.
Great having you. So, without further ado, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, I'm 47 years old. I've been married for about 28 years. We've got 11 kids, and we did the first 15 or 18 years of marriage and parenting super intentionally, and then at some point we got a little bit of success in our business, and I kind of let alcohol into my life and fitness at the same time. I thought I could juggle it all, and turns out about nine and a half years later, I figured out that alcohol was controlling me and taking me away from everything that we had worked for. And so I'm going on a year here in Thanksgiving will be 1 year. And it's been the greatest, one of the greatest choices that I've ever made in my life. So especially my adult life.
Absolutely. And this is something that we share in common. I too quit alcohol completely about 5 years ago also. So similarly.
Yeah.
And the change, as you said, well, we'll get into that, right? Like the change. Let's explain to the audience for those who have not faced something like that. Tell us your story and how you decided to become a sobriety and development mentor. I'm sure there's something behind that.
Yeah. So I guess the short of it is I just pretty much the culmination of things where I got to my low point. You know, everyone talks about a low point. I had mine, and my low point was just feeling completely disconnected from my family, from really everyone. And that's one of the stages, I guess, is like this isolation stage. Right. Of course, I wasn't aware of it at the time. Now I know what was going on. And that's where I was, and it was miserable. Even alcohol couldn't get me to a point of feeling connected anymore. Gotcha. But yet I would still turn to it. I finally just come to the realization that, like I said, that it was controlling me and that it was taking me from everything, and that I had a problem. Once I realized I had a problem, and I actually had that conversation with myself, which I did not have for the previous time of drinking. Once I had that conversation, the reality of what was going on became real, and I basically the desire for alcohol went away, and that's what I hope for everyone. I know that's not everyone's story. You know, I think it's a process for a lot of people. I mean, it was a process for me as well. You know, the next steps were trying to figure out, like, what do I do now? Like, that was my biggest struggle. It wasn't, oh, am I going to drink today? And mine was like, what am I going to do today? Because my days were consumed with drinking every day, every event, you name it. I was drinking. Church, birthdays, weddings. It didn't matter. Mm-hmm. So one of the big steps that I did was replacing the physical time that I used to start drinking around 2 or 3 in the afternoon with physically working out. I was already working out a little bit, but I just put that workout in that time slot, and then to document it and to kind of keep myself accountable, I started an Instagram page, this Fit Over 40 Dad page that I have now. And
which is how, by the way, how I found you, which is great. So success there. There you go.
Yeah, right? Thank you. Yeah, it's been crazy. It started off from zero. I started it last December, and with no intentions of it was just for me, just to remind myself, just to have something to look forward to every morning. I was getting up. At that time, when I stopped drinking, I went from waking up at 8 or 9 in the morning to 3 or 4 in the morning. I was just ready for life. And I was doing cold therapy at the time, waking up, jumping in the tub. And then I would go into posting something, just kind of fumbling my way through the Instagram thing. And I did an introductory post at some point about 3 months into it. I had about 50 followers, introduced myself, just like who I am, my name, my age, sober, I'm a Christian, veteran, all this stuff. And it just went bananas. And so people started reaching out and just kind of connecting with the sobriety part. And I didn't even know much about it because I hadn't really talked much about it yet.
Right.
I didn't realize the importance of talking about it. And so I just started talking more about, I've got 3 or 4 like pillars that I talk about, intermittent fasting, cold therapy, sobriety, and diet, things like that, just in general. But so I just started realizing that, the thing that I knew about men, I knew a lot of men had problems, but I didn't know so many men and women were wanting to get out of those problems. And so they just started reaching out, and it just started flooding in. I went several months of just kind of fumbling my way, just continuing to post, continuing to message people and just reach out to people and help as the best way I could. And then, it's just kind of transitioned into where I'm at now.
So that's excellent. So, and you spoke about, so one of the challenges, right? When we have this spare time, all of a sudden, especially after dealing with like a battle like with alcohol or any I guess substance abuse or
Yeah, anybody.
abuse of anything. It could be behavioral. It's modifying those behaviors, right, in order to become healthy and to and in a way not make it obsessive in another direction too, right? So there's that balance.
Right.
So I was going to ask you, how does your faith play into it? You mentioned it. And we recently had a guest who's also a motivational speaker in a different direction than yours, but also a person of very strong Christian faith.
Mhm.
Could you maybe comment a little bit of how that helped you, or what you know now, looking back at the process?
Yeah. So my answer is probably going to be a little bit different than what you're expecting. I actually used my Christianity as a reason to drink, as weird as that sounds.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll try to keep it short. I just had a lot of beef with the church in general, with the lack of focus on people taking care of themselves, just like from a food and drink point of view, just like regular
Right.
beverages and stuff, and the
Mhm.
way that our food system is in America, especially, is pretty poor. And we've always been
Yeah.
very in tune with that. We've been organic farmers. We've just always been, we were poor for a long time, but we always had
Mhm.
good food. That was number one priority to us. And so kind of transitioning over to my drinking, I knew that I was taking care of myself, and I knew that, my understanding of what sin was more of a heart issue, and I felt
Mhm.
like I was still being a decent dad, and I was still being better than anyone I knew. And
I gotcha. Yeah.
yeah, and so I was still able to have spiritual talks and, kind of be in tune, and that's kind of what a drug will do with you sometime. It kind of,
Mhm.
and that's what's scary to me now, actually, because it can kind of open your mind up to things that you think you're ready to deal with, but you're really not. Like, there's a whole
Right.
spiritual world that I'm not capable of handling, right? But alcohol would get me in that place. And so, because it sort of made me a better version of me, I thought,
Mhm.
I just kind of used it. Was kind of all of it was a package of excuses, I guess. And
Gotcha.
being a Christian was at the top of my list in some weird sort of twisted way. And it's even hard to explain now, but I just remember vividly thinking that I have this right. I'm not abusing it. So I thought, I wasn't a
Right.
drunkard. I wasn't screaming at my wife or beating anyone, nothing like that. And yeah, so that's how it was while I was drinking. Now that I'm not drinking, my faith has grown substantially. I'm not the evangelical type. I'm not going to be screaming on the rooftops necessarily, but
Right.
I'm more bold about it. I'm daily in the Word now,
Mhm.
and it's at the forefront of my thoughts when I come to when I have conversations with guys. I try to keep it kind of non-religious, I guess,
Right.
just so that it's kind of more across the board. But there comes
Mhm.
a point when, there's certain questions that are asked when that's the only solution. Like,
Right.
if there's this emptiness that you're feeling and that's why you're drinking, then it can only be filled with this, right? And that's my view, and that's where I'm coming from. That's my base. So,
So, and I guess it's similar to like when you hear a lot of people, especially in like 12-step programs, for example, talk about that higher power, right? Like in many cases, it's not specifically a, Christian or Catholic or specific
Right.
denomination higher power, but it is a higher power, something bigger than ourselves. So
Yeah.
I see that it's a commonality, if you will. Absolutely. So wow. So definitely, you definitely come from a different side of it than I
Mhm.
expected. Completely. It's interesting how something like like our faith or whatever, when we're dealing with substance issues and situations like this, which are complex, by the way. It's not as simple as when I quit drinking, I realized like I enjoyed drinking.
Yeah.
I was sociable. I was a very functional person who abused alcohol, but like you, I never did anything evil or criminal or terrible
Right.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's that whole isolation, that feeling of not being your best self for your family and for yourself, that just eventually you hit that rock bottom. Like you said, you hit that bottom, and it's like, all right, decision time. It's like, get busy dying and drinking, or get busy living.
Right. Yeah.
And it seems like we do have that in common. It
Yeah.
does seem so. Wow. So, all right. So, future plans. You've mentioned what you're doing now, helping others. How do you see yourself in the future? What do you see next in your path?
Yeah. So, it's hard to know what's going to happen in the future because what's happened this year is so out of what I thought would happen. But currently, what I'm doing is I kind of consider myself like my page is fit over 40, but it's
Mhm.
and fitness is the genre on there, but
Right.
I don't talk a lot about fitness. I talk a lot about mindset. And
Hmm.
so really, if you were to put a title on me, I guess it would be like a sobriety and mindset, like mentor. Like that's where
Excellent.
I'm at. I like to focus on, this is what I do with my kids and myself, and this is the conversations my wife and I have, is the things that we struggle with are our mind, and it's not the alcohol, it's not the caffeine, it's not the cigarette, it's your mind, and how you're thinking about things, and and
Mhm.
and what your personality base is, and why you're doing certain things, right? So what I'm doing now, I just opened up a community on the school platform,
Mhm.
SAOOL platform, and there's over 230 guys in there now, and I have like 3 weekly calls, and I'm just trying to pour into them. I mean, there's some like educational videos on there that I've put together, and there'll be some fitness stuff, and
Mhm.
there's some nutrition stuff, and book recommendations. We'll be going through books like Atomic Habits, things like that, but really just befriending these guys and just having a place of accountability where I can encourage and I can share wins, and they can encourage others as they have their wins, and we can celebrate all this together, right?
Right.
People are so spread out, and it's so hard to find a safe community of guys. Like it's about impossible, seemingly these days, to go anywhere without alcohol being in your face. And if this
Yes.
is the vice that you struggle with, which is kind of the overall, this is kind of where my community is going, because that was my struggle. But a lot of the
Right.
principles apply across the board. I just don't have a lot of experience with other type of vices. But nonetheless, with alcohol specifically, no matter where you go, it's in your face, whether it's music,
Right, right.
movies,
Our
the grocery store,
society,
gas
our
station.
society places it in a very common space.
Oh
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
very much accepted. Just to give you some context, I grew up in the Caribbean, so
yeah,
needless to say, tropical paradise, expected
yeah,
party 24/7, 365. So everything revolves around eating and drinking, basically.
yeah,
So I absolutely understand, and you're right. And even here in the States, even in the places that are so-called conservative, it's still the one common vice that you'll
yeah,
find across. More than any.
yeah.
Again, cultural mores, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw it a lot. Back to the church thing, I saw it a lot. In fact, when I started drinking and started getting more comfortable about a lot of the base of why I used Christianity as like a reason was like this anti-judging thing, like don't judge me for this, like look what you're doing type mentality, right? But
Hmm.
anyway, once I got through all that and I started, just being more comfortable with whenever friends from the church or whatever would come over, we'd have get-togethers. Like I was really bold about offering them a glass of bourbon or a glass of scotch because
Right.
we're grown men, right? And I started noticing that all these guys had already been drinking, like that I didn't know. I had no idea that I was like left
Right.
out of this, right? And so it's everywhere. I went to, and again, I don't think in and of itself is wrong. I don't think it's
Right.
a sin necessarily. I just know, for one, it's bad for me. So why would I do it? It
Right.
keeps me from reaching my full potential, and it could go south really fast, right? It can grab a hold of you. But
For
yeah,
sure.
I've seen it. I've seen it. It's everywhere. And so to have a community of guys that can help you stand strong in this, and that you have basically 24-hour access to, because it's really around the world. I've got people from all over the world in this, and we can share wins and encourage each other. And it's just a really good, that's what I'm excited about right now, is getting this rolling, getting the word out there as much as I can. And thankfully, my Instagram page is like just it's I can't keep up with how fast it's growing, which is a great problem, I suppose, if you're using it as a good tool, which is what
Right.
I'm trying to do. I'm trying to keep it, as positive, but as real. I speak my mind a lot too, but I try to keep it, just really straight to the point, and just kind of in your face. This is the reality of alcohol. This is the reality of not taking care of yourself.
Right.
Do you like where you're at? If you don't, let's change, right?
Absolutely. It's I was going to say simple message, but it's not simple. It's actually it's very deep and complex, even though it may
Yeah.
present itself as a
It's,
simple answer. So,
yeah. Yeah.
all righty. So let me ask you then, closing thoughts for our audience. If you had any words of encouragement, inspiration, anything that strikes you, whatever you may want, just share with us. What do you think?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things to realize is that I've thought a lot about this today, specifically in response to some questions I got earlier. Your choices in life are your choices in life. No one else can make them
Mhm.
for you. We are responsible for our success or our failures. We're the ones responsible for this. And so if we want to, let's just use the analogy of levels. If we want to get to like the next level in work, it's up to us. It's not whether we
Right.
have a good boss or a bad boss. I mean, I know there's elements of, environment that affects us, but we have the privilege of being able to change our environment. And that's something that I think we lose track of. And when we lose track of that, that's whenever we start blaming and making excuses. And
Right.
when you realize that that's not the healthy way to live, that's not going to bring any kind of positivity at all into your life, then you can start making more positive changes. And the choices themselves, kind of backing off or kind of bouncing on what you said there, the choice to do these different things itself is an easy choice. It's a complicated process afterwards, right? Like the choice
Yep.
is just like, okay, I'm doing this, and now
Right.
what? Right now, what's the next step? And I
Now
think
the actual
not, yeah,
steps,
you
right?
can't worry about, like, especially with sobriety, you can't worry about when I stop drinking at Thanksgiving. I can't worry about Christmas now. Am I
Right.
gonna? I have to worry about the day after
Today.
Thanksgiving. Yeah,
Today.
that's what that's
Yeah.
what I need to worry about is right now. And
Mhm.
so, and just getting through that, and then you start building your case. And so, just education, and just realizing that you are responsible for your personal growth. Self
Mhm.
awareness goes a long way. It'll get you in a lot of places. It's really good.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for those words. And just so our audience knows, we will add the links to JD's community down below in the notes so that you can check it out. It's amazing. I absolutely encourage anyone, if you're interested in anything about self improvement, about sobriety, about fitness, please give it a look, go visit it. And with that, JD, thank you for joining us. And everyone who's watching, thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe. I think we're supposed to say that every time. We'll be back soon with another episode and story of everyday people who inspire us and show everyone how to overcome adversity, just like JD did here today. Thank you. And remember, assess, adapt, and advance. This is Rise41 signing off. Have a great day.
Thanks, Gonzalo.